Welcome, one and all. So I'm joined here today by a very special guest. This is my friend Joshua, and he's got a great channel called Joshua's Magic, wherein he discusses many spiritual and spiritually related topics with great wisdom
Thank you.
and great aplomb. And I wanted us to do something a little special today, and it's a little bit of this is like a chance for us all to relax. It's like loosen our muscles, crack our joints. It's like basically we're going to do a fun little skim through of some Reddit threads, and it's not fun like this isn't. You wouldn't call us funny, would you, Josh? What?
I would call us funny.
I think we're funny people, but this isn't.
We haven't recorded the video yet, so I can't say whether or not it's going to be fun.
But this isn't an exercise in trying to be funny. It's like we're gonna just let loose and be natural with it. But it's the goal is sort of more of an intellectual synthesis. We're gonna babble in a way that makes bubbles. And as
You've explained it enough so that it won't be funny now, I guess, right?
As the bubbles babble and as they ascend, that basically we're percolating and we're creating meaning out of these Reddit threads. If that makes any sense. But so we specifically today wanted to look at r/relationships, the relationships subreddits. And so if anyone doesn't know, that's where people go and they post questions about specific problems they have in relationships, very specific situations, and they tend to go into those situations in some detail, and they end by asking some question about it. So I was thinking the way we do it is I just read it off. I think that's a little easier. Just leave us on the screen so people don't have to squint and read the thing.
People love squinting and reading, Nick. I don't know.
Huh?
People love squinting and reading.
Oh, well, yeah, if it's in a steam newspaper or something, but not for us, let's face it. So how do you like the sound of this one? Okay, the title of this post is Met the Perfect Guy. Find out a few days later he's married with 2 kids and a newborn.
And a what?
And a newborn.
Yeah.
Oh. Let me make sure.
I was going to ask you questions, but I guess they'll be answered when we read the rest of it.
Yes. I'm going to attempt to channel like Duffman and Zap Brannigan and really project. So you're gonna see me scarily trying to transform into an extrovert for a while here. All right, so
this is where you put in like some Transformers clip.
Yeah, right. If only I had those editing skills. An introvert should.
I'll force you into doing it. I'll transform you from Zap Brannigan into an editor.
See, I don't have the technical skills or the social skills. That's exactly my problem. But let's read it. So, met the perfect guy, found out a few days later he's married with 2 kids and a newborn. Jeez. It begins. A week or 2 ago, a guy, a 30-year-old, off of a kink website, contacted me, a 26-year-old. He was from like 40 minutes away. I checked his profile and we seemed into the same things. He was looking for a long-term relationship. First thing he said in his profile. He was ridiculously good-looking, but not a very good conversationalist. On a whim, I invited him to come over last Saturday. He wasn't texting me too much until we started making plans, maybe a text every hour or 4. I made a joke at the beginning about being a terrible texter, and he confirmed he was too. Okay, no big deal, right? We meet up you keeping up so far?
Yeah.
You keeping that on file?
We meet up. All this?
Sorry?
I said, you getting all this?
Getting all that? I don't see you writing it down. We meet up in a public place, and I get a picture of his license. I do this anytime I meet someone offline, and I give the ID to 2 people I trust to check up on me / call the cops if I don't respond.
I thought she was going to say, and I run a background check on his wait, did she say ID or license plate?
ID.
Yeah.
She snaps a picture of their ID.
Well, I guess that makes sense. It
I
sounds
mean,
kind of extreme, but it also.
well, it makes sense, but it's like, you know, I don't know. You're in a situation where that makes sense. Is that concerning? Well, whatever.
Yeah, I see a point.
Um, anyway, in my head, if you have their identity in hand, it helps guarantee your safety. So we go back to my place. Just start hanging out. He's
But if I was Stefan Molyneux, it'd be like, so let me get this straight. You seem to be doing this quite often, needing to have ID because you're associating with unsafe people.
yes, or people you don't know to be safe. Yes. But fine, but fine. So we go back. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's like.
This is a real point here that she does this.
Uh,
You know, like obviously it makes some sense, but the fact that this person has thought this out says something. Like there's not enough information to say what exactly, but it's like he's had like really bad experiences in the past or a traumatic upbringing or something
Yeah.
that indicates that this is somehow in her mind.
you could argue it's somewhat of a sleight of hand, in the sense that like, and I mean, sleight of hand makes it sound like, oh, she's fooling us all. But what I mean is more like, you know, you have this sense of, oh, it's safety, whatever, you know. Yeah, and of course, well, I'm a single woman out there. I have to make sure I'm safe. But ironically, it's almost like that becomes a catch-all excuse or a cover for the fact that I keep putting myself in dangerous situations.
Yeah, even if you're doing something legitimate, there might be other reasons behind why you're doing it that are worth examining.
Well, that too, but I just mean like, you know, emphasizing how you're always unsafe is almost a way to cover the fact that, you know, you're putting yourself in unsafe situations.
Yeah.
If that make yeah.
You
but
get
whatever.
used to water being too hot or too cold.
There you go. There's some kind of Goldilocks joke in there, right?
Some sort of what?
There's some Goldilocks joke in there, right?
More like the analogy of the frog in hot or cold water.
That you were, yeah. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, she gets the picture of his ID, to guarantee her safety. We go back to my place, just start hanging out. He's completely different in person than he is in text. He was giving a few red flags in text, couldn't figure out how to send a picture of his license, not responding the best, but he made a convincing case finally, and I met up with him. I told him in person what my dad said. Wait, she didn't mention anything her dad said, did she?
Is she about to tell us what her dad said?
I don't think she. Anyway, let's assume it's not that important. Okay. He's gorgeous. He's sweet. He's polite. Says all the right things. Complimentary about me, my body. Lays it on thick. Looking back, I think he was just being the perfect man to not raise any flags. Tells me his sob story about losing his job during COVID, so he's renting out his house for income and working on his parents' farm to pay rent at their place. Talks about how he doesn't want me to meet them for a long while because they're crazy conservative. Okay, my mom is like that. I get it. Interesting.
I'm not seeing perfect here. None of this stuff to me. Maybe he's good looking. Maybe that's one aspect of like pseudo perfection. But like just about everything else here, you know, maybe she's leaving out some stuff about how they had a really great conversation or something. But like all this other stuff is not like perfect.
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like what she means is sort of superficially perfect. Like he knows how to be charming and is good looking, and you know.
I mean, clearly missing red flags. Like,
oh yeah,
this whole thing about like even mentioning the parents on the first date, like what? Like, I mean, you know, maybe you would talk about your parents for some reason, but jumping to like, oh, you can't see them.
Yeah, just
so they know that I'm married and have a family.
Don't expect that. Yeah, and crazy concern. I mean, I guess it's like he's. Well, remember, she met him on this kink site.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes a little bit more sense.
No, but that's interesting because it's like, well, you're in this almost this subworld where it's understood that there's a certain level of secrecy, and oh, these people wouldn't understand and whatever.
Yeah, I guess it makes a little bit more sense with her taking the picture of the ID and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it also is while you're entering this sort of unsafe place.
Well, but what I mean is like that could be kind of part of his game. Is like you're entering this subculture where it's like understood that there's a certain level of separation between you and, the normal world, quote unquote. There's a certain level of secrecy or privacy,
Mhm.
I don't know. But anyway, his parents are crazy conservative. She can never meet them. We slept together twice. He's the first guy I've been with that wouldn't even have sex with me until he'd made me finish. I'll admit, at that point, I was swooning. We just stayed in bed and cuddled, and it was wonderful. He left and wanted to do something the following weekend. On Monday, I found out my place was hiring for what he does. Being who I am, I texted him and let him know. He responds 5 hours later. Something to talk about this weekend. I don't know why, but that's when things started adding up, so I started digging. 1, couldn't find him on social media. 2, texting very slow. 3, lives far away. 4, has already made it clear he won't be bringing me to meet his friends and family. Is this guy married? Now,
I mean, come on, Shelley, come on.
Yeah,
Come on.
I let him. I mean, I let him seduce me. I had sex with him a couple times. Kept engaging in a relationship where we were seemingly texting a lot. And after I let that happen for a while, it was like, oh, wait a minute. And we know she's cautious. She's got a whole system.
In a certain way, she's not too cautious about like, hey, should I have sex with a stranger or not?
Yeah, I know, but like, my point is like, these aren't things that just wouldn't occur to her, right?
Which things?
This list, couldn't find him on social media, texting her.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're basically creating a situation where that could happen for all you know, and then being like, whoa, wait a minute, this happened?
I mean, this is the problem, really. I was about to stop you when she was like, got to the part of like, hey, we had sex and, it was so good and we cuddled and all that. And it's like, literally the only thing that seems perfect about him is like sex and appearance. Like, nothing else that she said about him was like positive.
Charm. Is
Huh?
what I think she just means he was charming. Like, it basically reads to me like he made me feel really good.
Yeah, but it's like totally superficial. It's like the perfect guy. It's like, that's like saying somebody's finger is perfect. It's like, yeah, but what about the rest of them? Like this person has no focus on like anything else, evidenced by going to a kink site. I mean, this is sadly the kind of thing you see today where people like focus in on one thing. They don't have a broad enough awareness or enough wisdom to realize that there's a problem with that. And then it's like, well, why did this happen?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We could try to look at it more from her side too, but
well, she's probably younger than us. She was probably
a
lot more raised on the internet and phones and all that sort of thing. I would guess.
I mean, this guy's saying he's looking for a long-term relationship.
On a kink site?
I mean, well, yeah, sure, because they figure, we have this kink, so we need to find someone who has the kink. But like,
I mean, but then it's still, I don't know. It's still like putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah,
like,
I get
like if you say you need to find somebody who's like the same religion or even maybe the same political leanings or ideology, like that's something more substantive, right? But like a sexual kink, it's like you're basically admitting to yourself that your sexual kink is so much more important than like, any of the deeper stuff that would come from a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like it's this, again, it's that underbelly effect. It's like you're in this subculture that sort of taints you you know, I mean, it had, like I said, the understanding of a level of secrecy, but also like, you know, you can show other people like, oh, this is a weird person from a weird little subverse of humanity, you know. Not that I'm saying that's right, but like, you know.
I mean, it's just really sad. People like, well, there's no right and wrong sort of. Like, there's just this idea, like, oh, I'll do me, you do you, this kind of thing. And there's no thought that, like, hey, you doing you might not be the best thing because X, Y, or Z. It's just like, oh, I did what I wanted. Why didn't,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like, yeah, like I said, she got, you know, what she wanted a few times. You know, she got what she wanted for like whatever this was, a couple of weeks. And after getting what she wanted, she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember now to be suspicious." And you know, like maybe it's time to. Well, I mean, I don't know. It seems like, yeah, that's the problem. It's like about getting what I want, and also like, I don't know, both getting what I want, but like also being the moral person in the situation or something.
I mean, who knows how much she cares about morality. Let's see what the rest of what she says.
All right. Um. Okay. Sorry. Scrolling around here. Is this guy married? So I put on my sleuthing hat and go digging. I find it's real Facebook. It's a variation of his name. There is a child in the picture. Okay, red flag, but maybe he's divorced and embarrassed or had a kid out of wedlock. But at that point, I can't let it go, so I keep going until I find his wife's Facebook. She has family photos. They have 3 children. They just had a third in April or May. Newborn pic in May.
Well, is this from like right now?
I imagine it's recent.
Okay.
Um, Getting cheated on while married and not finding out is one of my bigger fears. I feel disgusted that I slept with this poor woman's husband. She's a bit overweight like me, and she just had a kid a few months ago. She's probably hormonal and struggling to feel beautiful as it is.
I mean, I guess this is a woman thing, but I was going to attribute to this person in particular. It's about feeling beautiful. Like, if somebody cheats on you, your whole thing is like, oh, I'm not beautiful, not like, oh, I'm not a worthwhile person. Like, if you're thinking about like, oh, they cheated on you because you're not beautiful, like the way you're looking at things is all like outer. Like, if somebody cheats on you and like it was just about beauty, you married somebody who's like really shallow and vain, or you're really shallow and vain, or both.
Yeah, it's like being, I mean, beautiful, I think kind of means like feeling, you know, in your power in terms of femininity or something.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess, but like
but
I don't know. Like,
yeah, no, externalizing it like that may indeed say something.
I mean, it's not nothing. It's not like beauty doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't not like it probably doesn't mean more to women than it does to men. But like, if that's the module you're looking at it through, then I think you're on the wrong axis there.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. The whole thing of like, I feel disgusted that I slept with this poor woman's husband. It's like,
Well, she should.
sure, but like, I mean, this is what happened. Like when you do stuff with strangers, it's like you don't know who this person is.
Yeah,
Like taking no, you're making no assurance that you aren't doing that.
yeah.
Just like I'm gonna do something knowing nothing about the situation, and I can just blame the other person.
I mean, that's part of the larger thing about not having sex with somebody right away.
Uh-huh.
Like how many issues would it solve if you waited? I mean, this is a low number, but like 3 months to have sex with somebody. Like, think how much that would solve. That would probably eliminate this if you paid any attention. It would eliminate people that were only there for the sex, because why the hell are they going to stick around for 3 months if they just want to have sex with you? But if that's what you're there for, then it comes with all the problems. You got to be willing to accept that and accept the consequences to other people.
Yeah, well, I guess, when you make, I don't know. It just seems like when you make something when something feels good, and is like this really hardwired want as sex is, you can't make it morally neutral without throwing off morality. Like if you take the attitude that sex is sort of morally pretty much without inherent meaning, then sex is just going to win out over everything else. And you know, the sex drive is going to sort of conquer everything, and everything else is going to be sort of subservient to it, because it's like this urgent desire that,
Because it's okay no matter what, and you really want it.
yeah, it's okay no matter what, and you really want it. And it's like, and I think in a way it sort of warps people's thoughts, because sex then is potentially involved in everything, right? Everything is like 2 or 3 degrees away from sex, every situation. And I can't allow myself to think objectively about sex, or like I can't like allow myself to think there might be a consequence to sex that would make it, you know, better or worse in a given situation. So my thought process around everything sort of gradually becomes warped in a way.
Becomes what?
Becomes warped in a way.
Well, it's basically like, I guess, like the true human being, so to speak, has like these higher urges, aspirations, hard feelings, whatever, other things that motivate them and that they value. And if you've sort of like put sex as the highest thing, it's sort of like you've to some extent hollowed yourself out and
Well,
put that in place of where those other things would be.
it's constantly interrupting them, right? Like it's not even a question of making it like I'm not at all saying it's morally a bad thing, quote unquote. It's more like, by making it morally neutral, by being like, oh, it's just okay no matter what, and the idea of attaching any idea or rule to it is silly. It's like, well, okay, but that means that it's just going to interrupt everything all the time, because it's this really strong sort of base desire that's like almost always there. And so, you know, you're not, like you're saying, these higher sensibilities don't really have the chance to emerge for any length of time where they're actually like a factor in planning your life.
Well, you have to sustain them through interruptions, otherwise they don't mean anything. Just like a relationship, you have to sustain your love and expression of that love for your spouse, your partner, whatever, uh, past obstacles. It's like, oh, they put on a few pounds. What? We're done with. Oh, they said something I didn't like. We're done with.
Yeah.
You got to follow the higher things, despite what obstacles or lower things get in the way. Anyway, what else does she say?
Okay, so, oh God. Yeah, so she found the Facebook page. They have 3 kids together. She feels bad about it. I texted him. He added me to a group chat with another number and said sorry. Okay, great. So now I know I'm not the first. I text the girl 1-to-1. They went
Wait,
on.
what?
This is another
I'm
one.
not sure I understand what happened.
He added her to a group chat with one other woman, um, saying sorry. So I guess this is another woman that he cheated with.
I
I
see.
don't know. I don't know.
And okay.
I texted the girl 1-to-1. They went on a date a year ago. She didn't know about the wife and kids either. Lying is huge for me. He played into my biggest fear. I don't know if I should reach out to his wife and tell her. I have a few concerns. This man knows where I live. He wants to meet up in person to talk. How do I stay safe? Number 2, what if she takes it out on me or finds me or attacks me? 3, I know he did this, not me, but I would be the catalyst in ruining/destroying the trust of their relationship. I don't know what to do. Has anyone else dealt with this?
You'll be the catalyst in exposing that their relationship doesn't have any trust. I mean, like, it's
Yeah.
already not there.
Well, I mean, her fear was like getting cheated on and not knowing it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it's difficult, but
Well, I have historically always come down on the side of like you should tell people these things. I mean,
Yes.
I'd want somebody to tell me if this was the case. And look, you put yourself in this situation, so this all like, oh, I'm unsafe or whatever. It's like, look, there's a responsibility to come forth about this. I don't know that I would even meet up with him. Like, what's there to meet up about?
Yeah.
I mean, call, talk to him on the phone if that's what you want to do. But why are you gonna meet up in person?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
And I mean, in one sense, she might be doing a good. It might be good that this happened. Like if he's done this before,
Yeah.
and like the other person, I don't know why she was on a group chat with this other person. Like did
I
this
don't know.
other person just find out right? I mean, that part doesn't make sense. But if like he was doing this and she's the one who's like steps forward and stops it by like outing him, then maybe it was for the best or something, or at least there's a silver lining or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I feel like I wanna try to take the other side because I feel like we've been pretty hard on her, and
All right,
maybe it's warranted.
devil's advocate
I mean,
with Nick Taylor.
listen, she's like, she wants to have a good time, and she was careful about it, you know.
Well, sort of.
But
There was like, oh, he didn't send me the ID. Well, whatever. I'll meet up with him.
it's also interesting. She said they met on a kink site, but she doesn't mention like the nature of the kink. I don't know if that like makes a difference.
Well, I guess we will find out.
But yeah, like whatever. She has this kink. She's trying to have a good time. Like, how careful should people be, Joshua? What is your point? What should people do exactly?
Well, I have trouble relating to people because I'm sort of very much about like spiritual intuition, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And very much not about like taking all these sort of procedural steps that a lot of people take. So like, I'll give you an example. I got hit by a car when I was on my bike. And, I didn't use the cross section and this guy was going really fast. But yada, 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 I'm talking to him about exchanging like insurance information. This is like a week or two later, something like that. And I had to I provided him some information. So I meet him at this place on the street. And like, I guess I made some copies at this, a corner store type place. And, for some reason, like, I had to go back to his house to pick up something or drop off something there or whatever. But him and his boy, they're like, oh, let's go back to the projects or whatever. And I was like, sure, I'll get in your car with you and go to the projects and we'll just do whatever, and then you'll drop me off right back here. Like now on paper, you look at that, it's like, oh, that's really sketchy. Why'd you do that, Joshua? But I just had this inner sense like, no, it's fine. And of course, it turned out to be fun. I did have this weird foreboding sense, sort of almost like a vision of something like bad happening, like on the way down the hill before I got hit by the car. But it wasn't specific enough, like, oh, don't do this or whatever. But it was sort of a weird indication that something was going to happen.
But it didn't.
Well, I don't know. I was imagining, like, what if I got into some sort of accident? But it was like, and it was sort of a somewhat vivid imagining. But it was like an accident, like hitting this concrete thing on the part of the road I was at, or something like that. It wasn't like that a car was going to hit me like 5 minutes later or whatever. But you can see it's sort of a psychic premonition coming through. And I think I probably was supposed to get hit by a car, did something for my consciousness or whatever.
All right. So, but
yeah, so I don't like, I wouldn't look at somebody's ID. I wouldn't, I mean, I might have an intuition. Oh, you're supposed to look at somebody's ID, and then I would. So, I don't know. It's hard for me to connect with real people because I'm kind of like, well, what does your intuition tell you? You should just follow God's guidance for you.
Yeah, but I mean, most people aren't into that. And so she took a nice, intelligent precaution. She took the guy's picture of his photo ID. Now, we have made the argument, perhaps, like, if you're in a situation where you feel that's necessary, maybe that's not the best situation, but
But see, the thing is, she didn't run a background check on it, which is where I thought she was going with that. She like.
well, she
She
gave the
didn't.
ID. Yeah.
Yeah, she slept with him without like knowing the guy at all.
Yeah, she just knew that he was charming and good looking. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea was the ID picture was to make sure that she didn't get like chopped up and thrown away or something.
Yes.
It wasn't to make sure to do like some sort of investigation or background check to make sure that like he wasn't married or whatever else. So I don't know that she took any precautions. And I guess her idea of perfection is, oh, he's charming and hot and stuff.
But I mean, people do this, right? Like, people do worse than
Yeah,
that.
but it doesn't make. I mean, it makes it normal or normal-ish, but it doesn't make it wise.
So then she should, and maybe that's the problem, is everybody's looking to what's normal, and what's normal doesn't necessarily work.
Something like that, yeah. Well, like all these sort of social mores have been thrown out the window, and part of it was like they were too restrictionary and black and white, and there wasn't enough thinking about why they're there. But we realized, hey, there were some reasons for why they were there,
Mm-hmm.
or at least we're beginning to. This is, one thing why Jordan Peterson's caught on so much, because people don't have anybody telling them, like, be responsible and stuff. And here's this guy saying, like, be responsible.
Yeah, true. I mean, well, it's like, yes, sex is, it's kind of deconstructed in a way, right? Like, because people, like, you'll look at a single sex act and be like, why do you care if someone does this? What possible relevance? But it's like, sex isn't just like a sex act that is somehow in a vacuum. Like, you have a sex drive. It's tightly coupled with, your brainstem. Like, it's deep in your consciousness. And so, like, when you say this is fine, like, whatever comes from this is like, an imperative worth seeking out in the world, then like you have to sort of make room for that, right? And everybody sort of has to make room for that in everybody. Like, now it's understood that like sex is a thing that might happen, that anything might be leading up to, and that maybe we're looking at other people in terms of sex, and maybe like everybody can't have sex because it's like it's not this kind of situation where you got sort of one-for-one relationships, right? It's sort of an open market. So
Can I cut in?
what?
I was going to say something when you're done.
Yeah.
So you watch the show Grimm, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not on anymore, of course. But have you seen all of it?
Not all of it, no.
Have you seen like most of it?
I don't know about most. I've seen a bunch of them.
Adeline Shade,
It's not ringing a bell.
the blonde Hexen Beast.
Oh yeah.
So remember how she? Spoilers, by the way, for Grimm. Decent show if you want to go watch it. But she sleeps with what's his name? Captain Renard, right?
Yeah.
And then and his brother. And then she has a kid, and I guess it was later determined that it was Captain Renard, not his like royal brother or whatever. But and then like somehow she loses her powers or something, and to get him back, she has to like pretend to be Nick's wife, Nick, the main character, the Grimm, and sleep with him. And then she gets pregnant with his kid, and so I'm watching this after show. Do you know what an after show is? Basically, like where they talk about the particular episode that just came on. So it's a neat thing. If the people you're on anyway, they just talk about the show, and I liked watching some after shows with these things. But so there's like these two guys talking about it, and like the guys, or at least one of the guys, was like, "Oh man, she's just like so careless and screwing up things for people," because she has two kids with two different men she's not married to, or another one was on the way, and then the woman on the panel is like, I feel like we're slut shaming her now, and I'm not okay with that. And it's like, well, they're talking. They're not just saying like what a trash whore. It's like there's consequences.
Yeah, these
Like,
kids' lives are affected by this, and your main concern is like you can't attach consequences to a woman's sexual decision.
yeah, I mean, it's like
They're attached.
everything has a consequence.
Yeah,
To reference another TV show, magic has a price. Everything has a price.
Yeah.
It costs effort to do something. You pay the opportunity cost of what you didn't do in its place. So this idea that like you can just have sex, like you say, which is a sort of like really intense, important thing, and have it just mean nothing. No, I mean, somebody needs to be real with people, and unfortunately,
and then you're like I sort of saying before, like your brain is addicted. It needs this idea of sex meaning nothing, right? It needs to make sure that anything that might suggest sex has meaning is suppressed, because then that mean things, and we have to deal with those things, and it's like.
But it's like, yeah, people don't
Ultimately,
a lot of people don't know this stuff because they're not taught it by the TV or whatever.
I think a lot of what it comes down to is basically just that, like, either at a certain point, like obviously we're driven by both, but at a certain point, either reason and higher things run your life or passions do. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't room for both to sort of fulfill their main prerogatives to a full extent. Like, either you leave the space for you to do what you feel like doing in the moment, or you lead, the quote unquote good life, or you execute on higher imperatives.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could read a few of the comments. I don't know if the comments are that good in this case. I mean, it's just like, here's what you should do. It's not that. This already is kind of like dramatic intense, and I want us to like shake it out.
So there's no interesting comments of like, here's what you should do and why.
Well, it is, here's what you should do, but like they're kind of long, and I don't. We could read one or two of them, I guess. It's a nice brief one here.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what advice people give. I mean, that's a reflection of what other people are thinking.
Let's see. Wait, if you had the picture of his license, how did you fail to notice that the names are different? Did he give you his real name and has a fake Facebook? It's not adding up.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. It's these little details. I never think of these little details, do I?
Well, I missed it too.
His Facebook isn't his real name, she says. If his name was James Mississippi, his Facebook name was James Mippy. So it took Googling him on white pages and finding a family member's Facebook to find his. Very interesting.
So his real Facebook and his driver's license are different? Is that the idea?
I think she's saying that the Facebook she had, the name was slightly different, or maybe I don't know. Yeah, because
that makes some sense.
Which, if true, I mean, wow, this guy's really all in on this.
Oh yeah, I mean, like that doesn't surprise me. That like he's taken steps to like indulge in this cheating lifestyle. Does anybody give her real advice?
You want real? I mean, real.
Whatever, just pick one, or let's move on.
I was gonna read this one other one that's kind of short. It said, block him on the platforms and don't get involved. The people telling you to tell his wife are children. He could kill her or you. People are that crazy. You dodged a bullet.
People could kill her or you.
He could kill her or you.
I mean, yeah, it's possible. Like, a lot of things are possible.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would kill his wife exactly. I mean, nothing here says that this guy is like a murderer. It says that he's like a douchebag cheater, but on his like wife that he has 3 kids with, which is horrible. But nothing is like, he's gonna kill you or something.
Yeah, well, that's sort of like we were talking before about using defaulting to the idea of safety to cover for specific actions.
I mean, that's another thing of like personal selfishness versus like honor, virtue, responsibility. It's like, oh, you did something wrong. Yo, get out of there, B, because otherwise you might get killed. You do you. So like you do you to get in this situation, and you do you to get out of it and not taking responsibility.
Right. Um, yeah, okay. I mean, this is just so sad. This is so brutal. Let's just like chat for a minute.
I don't know. I don't think it's that sad, or at least it doesn't hit me that way. It just seems like this is what happens.
It's not just sad, like there are worse situations, but it's just a combination of sad and boring, I guess. I feel like I want to bring better vibes. I'm not feeling a good vibe right now. Let's just break
r/relationships, perhaps not the best place to get good vibes.
What was the last time you had just a real nice bowl of chili?
Well, how nice are we talking?
Just like good, like satisfying.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I got these chilies from Trader Joe's that are pretty good, but they're not as good as all that.
Yeah. Well, I've been getting good at cooking up my London broils. Get a nice sear on them with a nice medium rare side of medium rare on the inside. You can learn to do that. You've mastered the world in a sense.
I wonder if Dallas BBQs has chili.
Yeah, they have chili.
Maybe I'll have to try that someday.
Yeah. What do you think would be a good way to go about a relationship, getting in a relationship?
I mean, again, I go to this whole like sort of intuition thing. So
The intuitional plane.
for other people.
Well, you're a spiritual guy. You're into the sort of esoteric stuff. So
I mean, I also had to work at this. It's not like I had, I didn't grow up with all sorts of like spiritual psychic impressions or whatever. I had basically none, or virtually none, until I started, the spiritual stuff that I do.
So can you say like how have you worked to acquire these sorts of attunements and powers?
Well, I'm in this group called Subud, as you know, because you are also. And I do this practice called the Latihan. It's basically, I don't know, it's sort of like Morpheus in the Matrix. Nobody can be told what the Latihan is. You must experience it for yourself.
Yes.
And basically, it's just this training from like the power of God within you, bring you to become who you really are, or your real self, and in touch with the, God's power within you and stuff. And so, doing the Latihan for a number of years awakened my own ability, sort of like intuition, you'd say, or whatever.
Would finding your real self diminish your need to find yourself in ill-conceived relationships?
It might. It might indeed.
Self-definition.
But you can approach it from Stefan Molyneux is really great. Too bad they threw him off YouTube. Check him out on BitChute though. But yeah, he's done a bunch of interesting relationship videos, and sort of in that vein, it's like understanding how things work, especially like people and psychological things. Like there's so many things people need to understand, like especially for women, like having sex with a bunch of different guys, like sort of like wears down your ability to bond with somebody.
Yeah.
And so if you want to like get settled and have get married and stuff, like you're making it more difficult the more guys you sleep with. And sorry if that's not fair, but you need to understand that.
Yeah.
And act accordingly.
As I understand, it happens for men too. I mean, it might be that, at least according to the studies or whatever, men need to do it more for the same effect. But
yeah, it's harder on women in that regard, from what I understand as well. I haven't looked at all the research, blah blah blah. So do your own research if you're so inclined. But like that's one thing, obviously casual sex, like at least 3 months before you have sex with
Not
somebody.
so
At
casual.
least, huh?
It's not so casual at that point.
Yeah, because it's like, well, do you want a real relationship with somebody? And if they can't wait 3 months, then they don't have enough impulse control to be a good person to hang out with. I'd say like probably 6 months. Ideally probably till you're married, or you're like, the farther you push it, probably the better. Like ideally, it would probably be marriage. But if you're engaged, or you're going to marry this person, or something, then that's a different story. But yeah, I mean this whole like first date, second date, third date stuff.
Well, I mean, there's not even always dates, right? It's like things are very
Hookup sessions, whatever.
things are very loose. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like a pendulum, right? Like you have to sort of hit a hard boundary. So right now, it's like we have this idea that there were all these like oppressive norms, and they were really bad for people, and people couldn't be who they are, and now we just have to like do whatever. But at a certain point, you hit a hard boundary with that, right? Like at a certain point, the consequences can't be ignored anymore.
Well, yeah, at a certain point, I mean, and this has already happened though. I mean, I guess it started in the '70s with all the divorce stuff, but like kids coming from broken homes, like we see the consequence of that. People are messed up, people are unhappy, and yeah, so some person had some fun, did what they want, and then the next generation pays for
Yeah, basically.
it. It reminds me of the national debt. Am I right? Oh,
Similar principle, similar principle. Josh, we're drawing all sorts of illusions between things.
sex and politics. Yes, indeed.
Indeed, intuitive of you. Yeah, sex and politics, they are kind of similar in a sense. It's like I just want, well, it's like fetishizing political symbols instead of like working to figure out and enact real, positive stuff. It's like fetishizing these symbols of like, oh, I care deeply about, trans issues, or, Latinx issues or something. Like I have this kind of person, or this whatever, this group that's like a symbol of the good thing, a symbol of a just society, let's say. And I fixate on that, right? It's sort of like that's the equivalent of like the cheap sex. Like I just sort of fixate on that, and the dopamine rush it gives me to be for that, and you have to sort of like, you have to give, I have a certain like moral right of way because I'm attached to this fetishistic object of political significance.
Yeah, symbols can be really good to use, but if you're not looking at the actual reality of the situation, you're just caught up in symbolic meaning, then that can be an issue.
Yeah. Anyway, so I want to do another one, but I had another one I was looking at, but I think it's a little too like similar and depressing. So I'm going to do this different one. And this is kind of similar to what we're talking about now.
Sunshine happy one.
Huh?
Sunshine happy
Well,
one.
it's actually not happy, but it's,
Yeah, none of these are going to be happy, are they?
it's different. It's different.
Nobody posts on r/relationships.
And
With, I met the great guy, and now we have 3 kids, and we're going to roll.
all the losers on here, here's how you really do it. All right. So shall I read it?
All right.
Okay. I, a 37-year-old female, don't like my mom, a 59-year-old female, rubbing in my face that I am having a kid now. She always resented me for having a career, and now that I am having a kid, she's ecstatic and views it as me ending some phase in my life and becoming a real woman. It's pissing me off. My mom is pretty religious, and she always focused on me getting a man. Even in high school, she made it this big deal for me to settle down and find a man soon after school.
Wait, she's 37 and her mom is 55?
59.
Oh.
She would have been like 22 when she had
Yeah, so that's potentially reasonable.
Anyway, so she was relatively fine with me going to college, but it was really after college that her true feelings about it all came out when I moved to New York and got a job there. She thought it was bad news that I was becoming a quote unquote career woman instead of starting a family at my age, early mid 20s, and that I would end up alone and sad. It was ridiculous. I had the time of my life in my 20s. I partied a ton. I advanced my career, dated, and slept around a bit. I wouldn't trade those years for the world. Eventually, my mom settled down on that front and stopped hassling me. Her sisters moved in with her, and I think that calmed her down. Her sisters are much more liberal minded. And she wasn't quite as crazy in this regard. I thought she just changed her views. So, what are you thinking so far about this?
Well, I don't know. It really depends how it all shook out, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it seems like she has had a child, so that much is there. Um, but let's read on and figure out more. Anyways, fast forward to me at 33, and I met Jose, and we got married last year. And I'm 3 months pregnant now. My mom found out 4 weeks ago. She has been ecstatic, like just absolutely crazy happy for me, which is normal. But she also keeps saying things which make me think she never really changed her mind about her previous attitude. Like, quote unquote, you don't have to worry about stuff like working at that job anymore, finally. Or saying stuff about how my whole world before my kid will mean nothing to my world after my kid. She keeps saying how I can finally move away from that s-hole New York and live in a family-friendly place that's good for moms like me. Ironic considering rent prices dropping recently just means we want to stay here even more. Just like general stuff like that. And I get this overwhelming sense of I told you so from her about this, and it is seriously, really pissing me off. I guess she is happy for me, but it also really just frustrates me how she very clearly did not take me seriously as a woman until this, and she is almost not even hiding it anymore. I sort of hit a point recently where she made a comment to her friend about how my kid will have lots of grandkids, hopefully young. And I was just like, what the hell? This kid isn't even born yet, and you're trying to push the whole have kids young thing on them? How do I deal with this? How do I tell her how demeaning her whole attitude has been?
I don't know this, like, how do I tell somebody something? It's like, do people not have any experience telling people like what they think?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's worth like asking for advice on.
no,
But
but
when people ask like, how do I tell somebody this? I just think of like, just basically say what you think. You
no,
know,
but she clearly has though. It's the thing.
I don't know if she
Her
has.
mom has talked about this.
I don't know.
I guess it's like,
I don't know. I probably shouldn't put down her asking for advice because asking for advice is usually a good thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, you just tell her how you feel, basically. And I don't think the mom was acting particularly well. I mean, there's obviously some logic in what she's saying, but seemingly, this woman, made the choices she wanted, and got to the place she wanted to be. You know.
yeah, I mean, details notwithstanding, but sure. I think
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we don't know all the specifics of it, but you don't have to have a kid when you're 20. That's not like.
no, certainly not. I mean, I think like it's not like for one, her mom. Well, obviously her mom's from a previous era in a way, but she has a different view of things, right? Like you should have kids young when you're young and fertile, and you know probably have a bunch of them, as she seems to be suggesting for the grandkid. Um, and that's sort of her worldview. I mean,
But
nobody.
this is. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, nobody necessarily has to go along with that, but it's like, you know, let's not pretend that there isn't another worldview on the other side, right? Like it's this framing of a worldview as just like neutral, right? Like just doing what you feel like and partying in your 20s and whatever. That's just like setting that as the norm isn't like doing like imposing anything on anyone or doing anything you know to try to restructure society when it is. I mean, it's a completely different society that they're sort of um, wrangling about for, right? Like it's
Well, this is it's very interesting because it sort of illustrates this whole clash of old timey mores, social mores, and values and traditions and stuff. With like, oh, I'll just do what I want.
But can I just say, like, because to complete the previous point somewhat is like, if it was the opposite situation, there wouldn't be as much of, and there's, the comments are like basically all negative towards the mom, which, I mean, fine, I kind of get, but like, if it was the other way around, it wouldn't be like that, right? If the mom was like, oh, well, maybe you should get a job and be financially secure. Maybe you shouldn't have a bunch of kids this early, like no one, maybe you shouldn't define yourself by your family. No one would be like, oh, that's horrible. That's, this is your choice. They'd be like, oh, well, she has a point, but maybe do you, or maybe listen to her or whatever. Um, but it's like, because this is seen as the leave people alone thing, it's seen as like not taking up space in society. Like this, like pushing this isn't pushing a specific agenda, which is at odds with other agendas. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure. Pushing what?
Pushing, like, if you were to push the idea that people should wait to have kids and like focus on career and partying and hooking up or whatever, like that's just seen as, it's sort of like we were saying with sex itself. It's just seen as like, well, whatever, this is neutral. This is just people doing stuff. Like this isn't, because it's seen as the allowing people to do stuff thing. It's not seen as pushing an agenda or taking up, space in the sort of,
Or having sort of irrevocable societal changes.
right. I mean, it has social reverberations that you're ignoring because you're focusing on the individual and how you're letting them do their thing or something. But it's like, just like the mother has a certain social agenda in mind, you also do. You're just not focusing on that. You're focusing on, well, I'm just letting the person do what she wants. That's what's important.
But I mean, the thing is, you can, especially if you understand how things work, you can, like she apparently is done, have, one sort of life and then transition to
Whatever. I
the
mean,
thing you
no,
want.
I'm not saying like she can. I'm just saying like it's
I
not
mean,
gonna.
it could have backfired on her. She could have like had real tough time getting pregnant later, as old as she is, or other problems with finding the right man and stuff. But it wasn't impossible, and it's not the way things were in the past, where some guy would be like, oh, I don't want to date you because that kind of thing. But the mother just, shot herself in the foot with trying to convey any of this thing. I mean, the mother seems like it's all ideological. There's no like, let me check up, the reality of the situation. It's just, I mean, like, and it's really irritating when you have somebody like that. It's like, you know, a dog with a bone over this thing. Like, they never let go of it. They never like sort of listen to you on it. They just like sort of like they're constantly holding it and just like sort of silence themselves, and then at the right opportunity, quote unquote, they like jump out at you again with the thing that they've never let go of.
Well, it's like it's not being able to like be there and be at ease or accepting of the dissonance.
Yeah.
And that reflects how you are with yourself, right? Like you can't be at ease with your own dissonance, and you can't be at ease when you're there with someone and they have a different view, or whatever. There's some kind of dissonance there. It's like I can't just let it be for now. Like I have to be acting upon it somehow, right? I have to be.
Well, the problem is there didn't seem to be a whole lot of thinking. It's like I just have these like images in my mind, and I need to sort of project them onto reality. And there's no like, hey, is there a different way? Do I understand the principle of this? It was, and like, she probably could have conveyed to her some wisdom about the sort of traditionalist position she was putting out there if she actually understood it intellectually. But instead, it was just, you got to do this, you got to do this.
But she may have. I mean, you're getting the daughter's point of view. She may have done that.
Oh, you think she might have said that, but the daughter just got so hysterical about it that she didn't want to hear it or interpret it in the worst way.
Well, I mean, is your daughter necessarily going to listen if like she wants to do this other stuff and society's saying that's the thing to do? Like,
Well, I mean, the daughter's really got to have cooked the book somewhat because she's laid out a case where the mother just sort of says things without checking the reality of it. Like, now you can move out of this shithole New York. Like, she clearly doesn't understand that her daughter doesn't think New York is a shithole and wants to stay there. You know,
Yeah.
and like, oh, that you can leave that terrible job, and it's like, well, if you understood your daughter, you know that she actually enjoys working at that quote terrible job. So it's like the mother's often her own like version of reality.
Sure, yeah, but that doesn't mean that she hasn't given some kind of explanation for her point of view. It's just she's probably she's continuing to impose that point of view on her daughter, despite her daughter basically not wanting to hear it.
Oh, you know what I think it is?
But
The mother just like wholesale accepted this idea that she had to be, a young mother and, live that life, right?
uh,
So she didn't allow herself the possibility of like honestly considering or thinking about this stuff, right?
right,
And so you've subjected yourself to this like blind authority of like, I have to be this way. And when you do that, everybody else has to be that way. Otherwise, they're doing the wrong thing. Because you haven't really thought about it for yourself.
yeah,
I think that might be what it is.
yeah, it could be. I mean, well, that was more the way things used to be, so that would make sense.
And then you have to confront this idea like, oh, maybe I pissed away some opportunities I had. You know,
Yeah,
maybe I could have waited like at least a little bit longer or, whatever.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, there's a good chance of that. I'd say. There's a good chance. Just that sleuth Joshua wielding his intuition like a magnifying glass, finding the clues.
Well, I don't know if it was intuition per se, more like just analysis.
Go with it. Just turn over that rainforest stick and let everyone see you basking in your powers.
My powers of deduction. Where's my magnifying glass?
Half a Sherpa, half a shaman. All magic man, all Joshua.
Speaking of magic, go check out my channel, Joshua's Magic.
Joshua's magic, Joshua. You're like one of those reverberating vocals, like someone talking over a rap song. Not a hype man when they just have like a pre-recorded thing. Joshua,
Yo, Josh.
just in the middle of our conversation. Um,
So the link's in the description for that.
it will be.
Boom. Well, it is now if they're watching the video, right?
Well, no. I want the curtain to be pulled back. I want people to realize that this video is actually happening before you watch it. Magic. Let's see. Okay, let's read some of these comments. So here's kind of a harsh one, but maybe it's fair. So 3-Day Bender is the name of the person posting this, and they say, "Gotta train a parent like that like a dog. Were you good? Here's a treat. Were you bad? Sorry, no treats. The treats are access to you and your child. Also, congratulations."
I like that. I tip my hat to you, sir.
Yeah.
I like that comment, and I think it's probably mostly correct.
Yeah, maybe.
You shouldn't accept like bad stuff from people, and live your values, as Paul Elam would say.
Yes. Yes.
Don't look for perfect, look for trainable. I mean, you have to be willing to sort of, I would say, consider the other person's position and stuff, and not just be like, I'm so great, everybody's got to kiss my ass. But, if they're being like abusive or unkind or something, you should set boundaries.
Yeah. There's a few. I don't know if there's this one comment that's kind of good, but it's long. person says, enforce a boundary. This is Noah the Red talking. Enforce a boundary. Mom, I understand that you're excited for my pregnancy, but if you continue to demean or belittle my life up to this point, or say things that I find offensive, I'll stop responding. And then, when she says those things, say, I told you that I don't want to hear it, and go silent on her. She'll either learn or she won't, but the comments will stop. Continue to live your life as you wish, and congrats on the pregnancy.
I wouldn't say it exactly like that.
I wouldn't say this.
I'd probably explain your position. This is more like behave the way I want you to behave. Like it doesn't get to the core of it, which is like change your mind and understand me, you know.
I think there's like a recognition that the mother is doing something not great, but and a sort of like people are giving. I feel like maybe some of these people are giving her strategies to deal with something worse than what this seems to be. Or like, I mean, I don't know the extent of it. I guess it is.
Well, she also didn't say. She said, "How do I tell her this?" Not. Yeah, so I guess the real thing would not be to cut her off, but to basically. And I mean, to your earlier point, like how many times has she said this? I don't know. Like if she's already had this conversation over and over again, maybe it is at the point of like, listen, like this needs to stop.
But cutting her out of your life is like, again, it obviously depends on what form this takes, but it just seems like.
But it's like, do you allow somebody that continues to belittle your life decisions to be in your life? Like, what kind of example does that set for your kid?
I guess. Just like.
Like, I mean, there's things you can put up with from people, but there's other stuff that you shouldn't, I would say.
Yeah.
But I would be honest and explain your position, like, clearly. And this sort of, like, that so, you know, maybe she's done that already and it hasn't worked. But I would, yeah, that's what I would do, is to make sure you've communicated clearly what your position is. And
Yeah,
at some point, you know, stop putting up with it.
Well, that may be the thing, because you know it's like, on the one hand, your mother doesn't want to deal with, or you know, can't be at peace with this difference that you guys have, this like dissonance that's between you. You can't just leave it be, and it's like, well, just going silent on her. In one sense, it could be like a continuation of that pattern, only just taking the other tack, like I can't be at peace with this, so I just like leave. But if you do really spell it out, and you can't, like, it's actually concretely shown that you can't come to a real, you know, détente or real conclusion on it, then maybe it could be warranted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people don't really like to express themselves accurately, or see the other side, or you know, work things out in a way that you've done what you can to work it out or resolve things. And you know, people just sort of blow up and be like, "Oh, you're so bad" or something. So I don't know if she's done that already or not.
Yes,
Well, that was an interesting story.
it was. I feel this is also heavy though. This is like, I feel like that was almost political. That was so. You almost expect relationships to be light fare, but they're really the heaviest.
Oh no, they're very important. You know, it's like sex, right? Like, you can't just. They're super important, and you can't just think they're meaningless.
It is the imperative. As a man named Dante once told me at work, when I worked in the fish department at Whole Foods, it's the mission. And he also said that he was a pimp who kills people. It was an intro. Maybe we'll talk about Dante one day. That'll be an interesting stream.
You can tell me those stories all over again.
That would be a decent stream, just talking about folks from Whole Foods.
Well, you know, we are in the second ray love wisdom solar system. If you follow the ageless wisdom.
Tell
So
people about this. Yeah, I think
relationships would be of paramount importance. Why that is tough to explain, but love, relationship is sort of have to do with the second ray, which is supposedly the ray that colors our particular solar system.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
and where can people find you spinning, delightful?
Well, my channel is Joshua's Magic. Go down, check it out. Watch some videos, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and there you go.
Once more, that's Joshua.
Maybe someday become part of the magic.
Yes, you're all invited to become part of the magic if you should prove yourselves worthy. Uh, Joshua's Magic is the channel. It really is an interesting channel. He talks about a lot of like spiritual and esoteric stuff in a way that is accessible and novel. I feel that's really a good thing. But this has been it for us. Hope you've enjoyed this. It was a little more serious than I thought it would be, but I think it was good. I don't know. You guys.
Well, you really set the tone at the beginning with, listen, things are funny, but there's a time and a place for funny, and this might not be funny. It could be funny, but maybe not.
Yeah, well, that's the power of words. I doomed us to not be funny. But I think we were still kind of interesting. And
I tried to be funny, but Nick set that tone. He was just keeping me down in his place of not too funny.
It's just what I do. I just stand there with a shotgun and lay waste to everything on my lawn.
He sounded that note.
Yeah, so that was our first go at this social media stream, this Reddit stream. Or we're gonna try to do a couple more like this and see how they go. But please, hit the like button, leave us a comment. If you didn't like us, leave us a comment, tell us why. Well, why are you just being all quiet about it? Don't.
Yeah, and share the video with all your friends and
Let's talk about how bad it is, whatever. Write about us in Reddit, how there's these silly, there's these dumb people that do these Reddit videos.
Young people. By whose definition? Under what paradigm?
Yeah. So anyhow, Joshua's Magic, Joshua's channel, Art of the Dive, my channel, you're on it. Please subscribe. Please like the video. Leave a comment if you're so inclined. And we will be seeing you another time.
It's a fun time, Nick.